Hey guys, today's devlog is a little shorter than usual. Unfortunately, I kind of ran out of dev time on Tuesday. A lot of work stuff came up and just had to deal with that rather than being free to do game development. So, we do have the entire Wave editor done though. There's definitely some more stuff I want to do with it, but for now, it's functional and it kind of tells me what I want to work on in the future. I actually implemented a little bit of it, but I have to kind of go back to the level designer and kind of port the system over. So I ended up adding a icon system. That way each enemy, instead of just loading the sprite from the enemy or loading a copy of the enemy into the button, I just implemented icons added at least for the burster. That's why instead of just being an orange ball, you see a actual orange ball with the two pink balls. So what you can do on this is up here is where you just enter your name to save, hit save to XML, done, prints out the XML. So the big things, what you can do is you can add as many stages to your waves as you want. Let's just go and add one more. So you can have as many as you want. Oh, I never made this say, this should say wave 2. I never went ahead and did that actually. Okay. But, so you get your different waves. When you add a row, they currently just default to current. Again, today was a little bit of a shorter day, so yeah. So you can add new rows, you can take rows away from each of these separately. You can scroll. If you go all the way and you're like, okay, I want to spawn 30 enemies in this particular wave, you can do that. These are individually scrollable. So how you do it, you add however many enemies you want, you add the number of waves you want, you click the enemy you want, so it just highlights a little bit, and then you just pop them all in. So they do default to current, and yeah, I need to change that to default to whatever you have selected currently. That's just going to be probably tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow, and it'll be included in I guess that'd be the Friday patch log or devlog. Yeah, because I'm doing one on Friday. But yeah, basically this one is just a little short. It's literally just going to be going over how this system works and how I implemented these scroll bars. Not a whole lot to talk about, so let's move on with it. All right, so the first component that we're going to be taking a look at is the sub-scroll list. So the sub-scroll list are these ones here. So they appear on the bottom of the wave controller as this plus button here. That's actually a part of it as well. So we'll just go back to it. So how it works is it's got two modes. It's got the plus mode, in which the sub-scroll holder itself is hidden and the plus button is displayed. Just literally just two images crossing over each other on a white background. But yeah, so essentially what it is it's a scrollable area. So just this whole section from add row down to here is just a scrollable area. So it's just your standard list content with a vertical layout group, content size filter, and then you've just got a mask and the actual rectangle transform and a scroll rectangle, and then the custom ones, ID tag, because everything needs ID tags, and our sub bucket manager. So below that, we have this actual class right here, or object right here, which is the sub bucket. So the sub bucket, much like its parent, is also made of two components, a add row button and an actual row. So it has a display portion, which always defaults to saying current. It's got the overwrite button and the delete button for each individual row. So all it has is the subbucket script and the ID script. I don't think there's anything else custom on here. So let's go up to the sub-scroll list. Yeah, so overall coding, we basically got the sub-bucket, the sub-bucket manager, and then when we get to here, on the canvas itself, we have the sub-bucket manager director, which works much like a sub-bucket manager, but for sub-bucket managers, because it creates several of these horizontally rather than vertically. And to make them vertical, or to make them horizontal, you literally just make a scroll bar, and then where was the component? It has to be on the content. Yeah, just instead of using a vertical layout group, you just use horizontal. First class we look at is the sub bucket. So the sub bucket has references to all of its various components. So the row holder, current display, overwrite button, delete button, add row button. It's got a string for what enemy it's holding, which is what's displayed in current display. It also has whether it's currently showing the add button or the main content, which is just the activate it boolean. And then it has a reference to its manager. So when you hit add row, which is the plus button, it tells the manager, you need to create a sub bucket, and it swaps itself via inverting activate it, and if activate it, either show or hide the different components. So create sub bucket is the next thing. So let's go take a look at that. So again, we've got references to all of our pieces as well as the director, and activate it thing, because it works both as a manager and essentially as a sub bucket itself, which makes the manager class a bit of a hybrid. So create sub bucket, what that does is it instantiates a new copy of the template of the sub bucket object. It sets the parent of this to the list content. So anything that is a child of list content is what's going to be sorted to be in that scrollable section. And then we register the sub bucket, which is another class over here. These probably can be rolled into one. I made a bit of a error when first creating them. So you'll notice it comes with one of the buttons already made. I didn't need to do that. I'm going to fix that later. I just don't want to right now. On start, it takes the first sub bucket and it registers it currently. It's messy, but it gets the job done. I'm just going to change it over to, instead of having one pre-spawned, it'll just run create sub bucket at the start. And create sub bucket's just going to have all of these in it. So, but yeah. After the tangent, now what you do, you add it to our traditional dictionary, because we use those everywhere. We then hand it an ID tag. We then give it a reference to ourselves. And then, because I changed how I was working with the camera, we had to do transformed at local scale. So we just set the scale of it. Not a big deal. But yeah, so going back to sub bucket, the next thing we can do is delete a row. So we're deleting a sub bucket. So what that does, let's see, it's, yeah, sbm.delete sub bucket. All that does is it goes, because we're passing an ID up instead of a reference to ourselves, because if it gets destroyed, it causes some wackiness. So we just go ahead, grab the reference from the library with the ID. We remove the reference from the library with the ID, and then we destroy the object. And if we have exactly 0 sub buckets, we create a new sub bucket, which we already went over. So the next thing, override current. So all that does, current display, get component, UI, the text, and then change the text of it to whatever is currently selected by the enemy painter. So if you listen to number 2, you'll remember the terrain painter. Enemy painter is basically the equivalent. It just holds whatever's currently selected. And yeah, so we just change whatever's being displayed on the left part of this button where it says current usually, over to the name of the currently selected enemy. Report current is literally just, it's the same thing. Actually, we don't need this anymore. That's completely useless now because we actually are just storing it directly in our current display. We're never storing it locally. Register SBM, store our reference. Swap mode, we already went over. So, sub-bucket manager, it's basically all of the same stuff. Yeah, create sub-buckets, swap modes, click add. It does the exact same thing as click create, except for it's just going to the director instead, which it has a reference to. Click delete, exact same thing. It goes up into the director, and the director does the same thing the manager does, except for with managers instead of buckets. Yeah. So the new one, the two new ones are right down here at the bottom. So get top inputs. So you'll notice, if this can render text, we have 3 input boxes. One for delay in seconds, one for spacing in seconds, and one for the scaling of the wave in a percentage. So we take those 3, because they're all floats, and we make them into vector 3s, and then we just toss that up when we're asked. That's just fed into the XML printing script. And yeah, the next thing we have is just get all the strings. All that does is it just trawls through all of the buckets, it gets their strings, and then it just passes them up as a list. So the next thing we have, enemy painter. It's super simple. We just tell the resource library to load its components. We store and set the current selection. That's everything in there. Enemy button and enemy button manager. You are probably going to be familiar with a lot of this also. So the enemy buttons, which are these buttons up top here. How they work is almost exactly identical to the other buttons we had yesterday, except for they store the name locally, and they use EBM, Enemy Button Manager, instead of OBM, Object Button Manager. And they use the new icon renderer, which is just a image that sits on top of the button. And it's, yeah, there's not a lot here. So the next thing, Enemy Button Manager. This code literally brought over a lot of this is. Just let me go through and see if there's anything new here to really go over. Yeah, there's not a whole lot. The only new things really are references to the new icon holder class. Instead of getting the sprite directly from the object that we're referencing itself, we get its icon holder, and then we get the icon. That way we can have standardized icons, and if I construct things out of multiple pieces, we still have a functional icon. Because the burster, for example, if we went and used the old methodology to get its sprite, it would just be an orange circle, because the 2 pink circles are 2 separate objects basically welded onto it. And the icon holder class literally just holds a sprite. You just throw it on stuff. It's much like the ID tag and the loading tags that are just going to be on everything. And it's just going to hold an icon, and you're going to be able to get it quickly, just so that, yeah, just so that you have easy access to these things. But yeah, other than that, there's not really any other changes. That's basically the whole thing. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this devlog. It was short and sweet, and we've got a nice little wave editor. This one took, was it 2? Yeah, so this one took about an hour and a half to finish. So there's only 11.5 hours or so of progress total, plus 2.5 of that was me yelling at something last devlog and being mad because I was lost. So other than that, yeah, we're at 11 and a half hours. We've got a wave editor, we've got a level editor, we've got the game itself playing properly. Um, oops. Yeah, I'm not going to move because I don't feel like saving right now. But yeah, so I hope you guys are really enjoying these devlogs. Fridays is definitely going to be a lot more in depth. I plan to do an entire night of coding. So that's probably going to be 7-8 hours. And hopefully that log should be a lot longer and we'll implement a lot more systems. I want to go ahead. I want to get that icon system put on everything. I kind of want to go back in the level editor and change all of the button systems over to use the icon manager, obviously, and just get that nicely set up so that everything's very uniform. So on the level designer, there's not really a whole lot I could do. I do want to change these and these over to use a scroll box, so I'll probably just quickly implement that. That way, if we go past the maximum number of objects or tiles, we don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about making drastic changes. I'd rather just get it done now, get a nice scrolling system implemented, and have it just solidly designed. It's the same thing with this. I want to go ahead and change these over to be referenced and automatically generate it from our prefab towers. I don't want to have to manually implement them. So that's going to be the next change. And after that, yeah, what did we have? We had the smart tile decorations. So smart tile decorations, doing a bunch of uniformity, updating the tower list is going to be a thing. Decoration loading in level. Oh, I didn't touch that one yet. Tower upgrades. Those are going to be the 5 things that we're going to be doing on Friday, along with some other stuff. And then after that, Saturday is probably going to just be doing some level design, just making some actual levels so that we can play the game, as well as probably implement a bunch more enemies and towers. So just Friday is going to be a long one. Saturday is just going to be a really fun day. And I'm probably going to live stream that one just so that you guys can join in and, well, if anybody shows up, do a live stream for that one while I do all the level design. So I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I will see you either, I guess, Saturday morning if I do the editing then, or Friday night. All right, have a great night. Bye.